marketing automation, what it means for your business, and sort of how you can take the buzzword and really make it a big part of what you do for your customers. There's plenty of fruit in the back, some drinks there, so make sure you're settled in. It's nice having a sort of smaller group that I'm usually used to with speaking, because it means that with this sort of topic we can get into it and really dive in. So we're going to just start with a bit of acknowledgement, thanking the Wajak Noongar people for the land we're on today, acknowledging their elders past, present, and of course emerging. Also thank you to the Spacecubed team for putting on today, and for the Ammo guys teaming me up to talk about the stuff I love to talk about. So I'm going to start off by defining marketing automation, because it is, as I said, a buzzword, and something that can be taken in a pretty broad sense. Pretty much marketing automation can be summed up as being all about customers, very simply. Customer relationship managers, customer data platforms, customer scoring, customer segmentation, customer personalization tools. Marketing automation is all about customers, and it should be improving the customer experience. Now, yes, you might also save some time, but the key thing to remember is in all of this, it should be serving the customers. And really, marketing automation is actually, it's all a balancing act. I like to think about it almost, I call it the do things that don't scale. And what I mean by that is you're constantly balancing trying to spend time with your customers in those one-to-one sort of relationships, learning from them, balancing that with automating that customer journey. And the reason I call it the do things that don't scale is that's a big thing in early stage startups is go and do something that you can't do with 10,000 users when you're starting off. Learn from those early customers. And the exact same thing applies here. Your business might be at a different stage of the scale as someone else. So having a think about, okay, where am I currently at? Do I actually really deeply understand my customers because I spent time with them? If you can say yes to that, then maybe you're ready for automating that customer journey and that marketing. So how do we actually do that? You identify, okay, that's great, I feel like I'm at that point. Well, the first step is to map that current state of your business. So how do you currently talk to customers? How do you serve them? How do you market to them? The best way to do this is to get on a whiteboard, and whenever I'm doing sort of marketing automation work with clients, usually we start on a whiteboard and we just map out, okay, so a customer sees your brand, your products and services for the first time. What are they thinking? What are they then getting? And then how do they move all the way down that funnel to the point of which becoming a customer? So you map that out. It's not your ideal or your sort of hopeful plan or your sort of improvement version. It's the current state. So you map that out. And then number two is, from there, identifying the automation opportunities. And you can't do that unless you've got a full picture of your current state. Now, this is a purposefully heinous photo, which sort of just pulls out how it used to be. This is all before my time. I'll put that out there. But from understanding and doing the research and hearing stories, the enterprise software of the late 90s and early 2000s really boxed you in. It was complicated, it was inaccessible from a cost perspective and also from a sort of usability perspective. It required a lot of mapping, and this flowchart here is to send an email to a customer in the early 2000s. Now you think about something like Mailchimp, how easy it's become. They actually started out of an agency. So Mailchimp was a marketing agency that was being sort of brought into their clients, and they were having to use software like this to send out their marketing messaging. They decided there must be a better way, so they built Mailchimp. The point of all this is to sort of emphasise the fact that there is really, and what's sitting behind this cloud, this very mysterious cloud, is the rise of no code and cloud. So it is a mystery to a lot of people. It is a bit unclear, and I know we've got some cybersecurity guys here, and obviously you understand the cloud space very intimately. But for the average founder, the average marketer, this has meant huge things for their marketing efforts. So I just wanted to touch on that, and it's super relevant to this conversation. So this is what, in my opinion, marketing automation looks like today. A bunch of Lego. I loved playing with Lego as a kid, and it was always a case of pulling the right blocks together, making sure they fit in the right way. Are they compatible? Does it ultimately create what you want it to create? And the exact same thing is true when you're creating automation. Because what it means is you're looking through this massive pile of tools and software and apps and strategies and tactics, and you're trying to identify, okay, which Lego pieces am I going to use for my creation, my automation. So this is what it looks like at the moment. I'll show you a slide in a few that will really emphasise that. But this is the challenge with your marketing automation. You're trying to dive into a sort of big pool of Lego. To sort of put some meat to that, I just want to go through a few of the tools, hopefully most of them you've heard of, some maybe not. It starts at lead generation. You have tools like Typeform, then a new product called Video Ask, which is a nice new tool around video, Calendly to book appointments. These are tools that, again, seem almost like we can take them for granted in 2021, but they form a huge part of a lot of people's marketing automation, that capturing of a lead at the start of the process. They might move into a CRM or sort of customer data platform, things like HubSpot, Pipedrive, and then platforms and APIs like Clearbit allow you to enrich that data. So Jane Doe, jane@gmail.com, Clearbit takes that and tells you what company is she at, gives you a face, a logo, and attributes both demographic and firmographic. Things like, where is she based, how many people are at a company. Tools like that really help us uncover and make more visible our customers, which is really exciting. From there, of course, you've got messaging tools like Mailchimp, as I mentioned, and things like Customer.io, which are great for doing things like SMS and push notifications. And tools like Klaviyo, if you're doing e-commerce particularly, they're really good for that. And you've got some connectors. If you like, it's the glue that sits between the Lego. It's things like Zapier, Integromat, and really, really important tools with this new world of Lego pieces. There's also some new tools, and hopefully, if I've done my job right, you might have never heard of these tools. One's called Creativity. We've been playing around with it in the office recently. It's a bit like a sort of Canva interface, but it's designed for making ads at scale. So whenever you're creating digital ad campaigns, and you've got banners that you might see when you're reading the Australian Financial Review or browsing a sort of website, they're all different sizes, and it's actually quite a manual process, as Jack knows because you've been doing it in design over the last few months, to create the assets for all those different sizes. So Creative lets you create one design with your assets, and it turns it into 100 different sizes automatically, and lets you do that programmatically. Great tool for marketing automation. Another one, Right Message. How you doing? Right Message is a really interesting tool that lets you segment the people visiting your website. So the folks that visit Camo Belt Marketing, we can work out, okay, are you an early stage startup, or are you a mid-sized enterprise, or are you full scale? And we can actually give you different headlines and different call to actions based on who you are. And that is a really cool piece of tech. So there's lots happening here, and there's lots of established players and lots of new tools adding to the Lego. But what I want to emphasize just quickly now is this thing, shiny object syndrome. It's very easy to fall into the trap of running around chasing the latest tech, finding new platforms that seem cool and have a nice landing page, and just jumping in. And what actually ends up happening, if you're a small team, 2 to 5 people, and this is still sort of early days for you, it's not as big of a deal. It might be a distraction, but at a big company, if you're jumping around software every 6 months, process is always changing. You get this tech debt, and that's really significant when you're at that scale. So yes, there's some awesome tools, but also don't forget about the shiny object syndrome. So from there, the job, of course, is to shorten that list, to filter down those Lego bricks into the ones that are going to really matter to your business. So this is what I was going to sort of reference with the Lego pile. This is actually what it looks like, and I still reckon it looks like a Lego pile. This is G2's marketing automation grid, where you've got leaders, contenders, niche, high performers, their sort of market presence and usability. You can see there's a heap. There's an absolute heap. And just because they're up here, just because HubSpot's up there, doesn't mean it's fit number one for your business. And that's actually the trickiest part. The software that will do the job for you the best is probably sitting in here somewhere. So how do you work that out? Well, you have some criteria that you set up. Different for every business, but there's usually 3 that we recommend for our clients. Number 1 is price. Everyone wants to know how much it's going to cost. But it's not just about how much it costs today, it's actually about how much it's going to cost in 6 months or 12 months. Because again, you don't want to get to that 6-12 month point and change because of that tech debt. So working out, okay, if it's going to cost now for 1 or 3 or 5 users X amount, is that going to be X times 10 in 6 months' time? Is that going to limit my growth? It's also a quick note here, if you're working in a startup, a lot of these pieces of software have startup plans where they can offer up to like 95% off your pricing, which is awesome, so definitely check that out. The next one is scalability. So similar to pricing, but thinking about in 6 to 12 months' time, 3 to 5 years' time, are the functionality, features, and usage going to match your growth? Is it going to be a limiter or an empowering piece of software for your startup? Are you going to get to that point and go, shit, it's not actually going to do what we need it to do. We need to change software again and rewrite the documentation and re-onboard everyone. Finally, that integration. I think probably the Lego example, the most annoying thing for me is when you have a couple of different sets all in one box and these pieces, you just find they're not really plugging together well. It makes for a bad Lego design, it also makes for a really crap marketing automation experience. And a bad experience for you as a founder or as a marketer usually means a bad experience for your customers. So thinking about, again, the fact that this is always in the interest of your customers. Now, that's some criteria. How to dig into them a little bit more. I mentioned G2. They publish those grids, some really good reviews and sort of comparisons. There's also Capterra and GetApp. 3 great sites where you can go and compare software. And actually, I reckon the most interesting part of these 3 bits of kit is they can actually help you to understand, okay, what is this thing, right? Is it marketing automation, or is it a customer data platform, or is it personalization? There's all these categories of software, and these guys split it up pretty nicely. It's actually a good point to mention that it's like comparing apples and oranges at the moment, because you've got something like Mailchimp, which is doing a great job of marketing automation, but then you're trying to compare that to HubSpot, which also does marketing automation, but then also does sales and CRM and service and CMS for your website. And it's very hard to sort of get a good grasp of the difference between the two because you're not comparing apples and apples anymore. So this is why this whole space is actually pretty hard. It's not even the implementation yet. It's actually working out what tools you need. So that's why it makes sense to have a trusted advisor visit those sites and have that criteria for yourself. So that implementation piece, how do you go about that? Well, the first step is to think about your process. So think about starting small with your implementation. Pick a team, or if you're a smaller sort of stage startup, pick a project, pick a client, and just work with them in that particular sort of gated bubble to try this piece of software. When you're actually selling software, when a software company is doing their marketing strategy, when they're selling to enterprises, they'll do this thing called land and expand. So they'll land in a particular department or function, and they'll actually then use that as their expansion method to go into other parts of that company. So it's the exact same strategy I'd recommend when you're doing a sort of software implementation at a small stage, is to pick a team or pick a project and try. It's definitely worth noting that you're going to have ongoing changes and iteration to these automations. Whether it's the customer journey changes or you have a new product there's always going to be changes. So the key is to have that reflected in your process. And then finally, that implementation, you could do it in-house if you've got the time or resources. You can also work with a consultant, freelancer, agency. Actually, something that a lot of people forget is that software like HubSpot, Pipedrive, Mailchimp, they've got customer success teams that work in the company that are there to support you in setting it up yourself. So they'll jump on a call for half an hour with you and discuss how you might set that up. So make sure you're using those resources too. Now, I just want to quickly tell a bit of a story about one of our clients, Bamboozle Quizmasters. Has anyone heard of Bamboozle before? So I'll give you a bit of an overview. You may well have walked past a rowdy pub on a Friday night and heard one of their quizzes. They do a lot of pub quizzes, a lot of themes. They do corporate quizzes. They've got a pretty interesting business where they have quizmasters as their employees. And they go around and they run quizzes on different topics for people all around Perth. They're doing like 20 or 30 quizzes a week, really pumping it out. Now, they got to that point pretty much powered by Excel. And that's pretty cool that they managed to do that. But what it meant is that it was actually sort of stunting their growth. So within the spreadsheet, there is flexibility. And when you get to that growth and scale, that's when you start to have issues. When you're working with different team members, when you're looking at, okay, we're really increasing our volume here, what do we need to do? So these guys actually originally came to us with a problem in their heads that was about Facebook ads. So they came to us and they actually said, hey, we have a digital marketing problem. We need more people in our funnel. And thankfully, what we realised is that actually they had a marketing automation and systems problem. So this was their sort of the top of their funnel, those first few stages. And what was actually happening was their acquisition was fine, but it was actually in their activation and retention where they were losing people. And what ends up happening is it actually cuts that funnel off. So instead of trying to bolster this, which didn't actually need any bolstering, we came in and we improved that so they can actually get it back to a wider funnel and not spend as much getting people through the top. And we had some great results with them as well. This is from Soph, that sort of runs Bamboozle. We worked with her to identify that Pipedrive was going to be a good piece of kit for their sales process. It's genuinely made stuff so much easier for us, and all the automation is such a time saver, finding it so much easier to streamline things, which was always the end game. The interesting thing about Bamboozled is they've got a few different types of work I mentioned at the start. They've got corporate functions. They'll go into an RAC, they'll run their sort of Christmas party with a fun quiz that engages people. They're also doing pub quizzes down in the local on a Friday night. So what we said is we were like, okay, let's try Pipedrive with your corporate guys. Let's try and set this up with one stream, one product offering, and it worked really well. So for the nitty gritty of this, what that marketing automation looked like is when they would put an application in, for an event on their website, it would drop into Pipedrive. It would send them an email through Pipedrive. As they will move through the funnel, they'll be getting PDF sort of program information booklets. When they were sort of approving things, it would be triggering sort of other automations in their invoicing software. Things like that, which were taking the team 10 to 15 hours a week, completely gone. So what it meant is that they could actually spend more time running quizzes and finding customers and not doing admin work. And again, that improves the customer experience. They saw the exact same emails. The customer didn't know this was automation, but what it meant is they were faster, they were more consistent, and they could actually spend better time managing the relationships and not sending emails. So quite often the customer doesn't see the difference in what they get physically, but it's how they get it where the improvement comes from that customer experience. So thinking about that funnel, thinking about where it's actually cutting off for you, do you actually have an acquisition problem, or do you have a marketing automation and systems problem? It's a good one to think about. Now, what I actually want to do is I want to demo that process of mapping the current state and identifying automation opportunities with one of you guys today. So if you feel like you've got a business that doesn't make the most of marketing automation, or you feel like there's ways to go, I'd love you to sort of put yourself forward to just map it out and see if we can find some opportunities. I know you guys are probably reasonably switched on with what you're doing in cybersecurity.
What do you think?
Yeah.
Volunteer?
Fine.
Yeah? Perfect. All right, Shil, mate, if you jump up and give everyone a 30-second of what you do as an orientation of your business for the rest of the people here today.
I'm a professional speaker, so I specialize in public speaking. I do what Kai does, I MC, I facilitate, and I speak at conferences. That's a 30-second intro?
And
So it's 15 seconds.
That's 15. And so it's, would you call it, it's not really consulting, is it? But it's services in a way.
Yeah, I do consulting to some capacity.
Yeah.
It sits in a niche where it's not quite consulting, I'm not quite sure how best to describe it. It's public speaking, so where does that fit into?
Yeah, so you're doing a bit of training with clients on their public speaking.
Yep.
You're doing your own talks.
Yep.
You're working on your own products.
Yep.
So let's pick one of those streams.
Okay.
Let's say whether it's your coaching,
Mhm.
your public speaking coaching. That might be the easiest one to do for this in terms of mapping out a customer journey.
Sure.
How do they discover you? Where's that acquisition? Where do they actually start?
Can I sit or would you like me to stay standing?
Sit, yeah.
They find me through my LinkedIn,
Okay.
through EDMs, through word of mouth,
How do they get on the EDM?
through the website.
Yep. Word of mouth.
Yep. When I speak at events, we have a QR code that comes up at the end.
Nice.
And for those who are interested in ebooks or tips, call it, they can scan the QR code and they sign up to the EDM by that way.
Nice.
So there's 4 or 5 ways they can get onto the EDM.
Awesome. So I'm going to call this the acquisition stage.
Yep.
In the interest of what we're doing here, I'm not going to do it as a funnel like you saw.
Sure.
I'm just going to map it out horizontally. So that's acquisition. So the next one is you've got this retention and activation piece. So this is sort of sitting in the middle of your funnel.
Mhm.
This is where most of your marketing automation happens.
Yeah.
So the next one, how do these people get activated? Maybe it is an EDM. That's probably the most obvious one.
Mhm.
But is there any other sort of spaces around? Maybe it's more LinkedIn engagement.
Can you define what you mean by activated? As
Sure.
in taking them from a lead to a client?
So client is probably all the way down here.
Okay.
Activation is pretty much saying, I know who you are.
Yes.
This is now, I've engaged with you in a meaningful way. I've downloaded something, I've got onto something, I've visited something.
Okay, yeah, so as EDM, they watch my content onto Vimeo.
Great.
They watch my LinkedIn content, so I'm quite active, as you know, on that platform.
Yep.
There's the movie downloads as well, so we measure and track that.
Yep. So Vimeo there.
What else do we do? That's all that comes to mind now.
Cool. Okay. So then retention.
Yeah.
So in that email sort of stuff, what are they getting? Are there downloads here? Are there particular pieces of content, like evergreen content that you're sending them?
Yeah.
What sort of stuff?
Downloads is something which is coming in the new year.
Yep.
So what they get regularly are tactical, we call them tactical speaker tips.
Okay.
So how to network better, how to speak for business development, how to do storytelling, how to
Yep.
see, how to present. So we curate our content across a number of topics,
Yep.
which then drives the viewers to either the Vimeo or to LinkedIn to watch what that content is.
Great. Okay. And I'm going to skip referral for now.
Yep.
How do they become from there? Is there a contact form where they say, "Sure, I'm ready to work with you"?
Yeah.
Well, what is that next step?
So how do they contact me?
Pretty much.
A number of ways. They call, they send emails to the support site, some email straight to me.
Yep.
Some jump onto the website and book through Calendly.
Cool.
I've even had a couple come through Vimeo.
Really?
Yeah, and I get a lot of inquiries directly through my LinkedIn.
Okay. Cool. So LinkedIn, I'm going to say DM.
Yeah.
Okay, so that
And
is...
Instagram.
Really?
Yeah.
Sick. Okay. Nice one. So, what I'm going to say is that is all the way to the point where they've contacted you, right? So that's what we call sort of the traditional marketing. Now we're going to sort of look at that from the contact.
Sure.
How do they become sort of meeting with you on a regular basis, paying you money client? So that's the marketing, traditional marketing. So from that contact point, what do they get? So what do you respond to them with? What's that first point of response?
Sure. The response is, depending on the inquiry, it's either a chat over the phone,
Okay.
15-minute call over the phone, or we hop onto a Zoom call.
So you and them.
Yep, it's me and them. Or if we feel it's the right kind of inquiry within a certain demographic, it's a face-to-face.
Yep.
And then from there, I apply a filter process, which is the questions and consultative process I have.
Okay.
Generally, one question: what's your budget?
Yeah.
That's the filter.
Yeah. Okay. So then, sort of from that point, you qualify. Generally, it's a dollar sign problem.
Yeah.
And a good
I
fit.
don't mean to sound
But
harsh, however, it avoids so much unnecessary conversation. Because if somebody says, "I have a budget of $500," I'll say, "Well, I'm all for you."
Yeah. So are you getting onto this call and then qualifying them through that call?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We do ask for this over here.
Yep.
When they book, so if you're on the website and if you book me through Calendly,
Yep.
we have a series of questions, 3 questions which we ask.
Yep.
80% of the time they don't answer those questions, and
Okay.
it's just, we want to get you in for speaking.
Yeah.
So then I have to qualify at the beginning.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. And in terms of like phone calls, Zoom, are they booking that through Calendly? Even if they, let's say they contacted you on LinkedIn,
Yep.
then would you say, "Cool, here's my Calendly, book a time"?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Great. So they qualify.
Yep.
Let's say you said, "Sweet, happy, I want to work with you." They're happy too. What's that next step? We'll get into the spicy end.
Yeah. The next step is proposal.
Okay. Yep. And how do you send that to them?
Before we even get to a proposal, I
Yep.
first have a conversation about, do we need a proposal or not? Can we put this on email? Can we only have a formal agreement to keep, what's easier for them?
Yep.
What's the simplest way? So say we get into a proposal, it's a 4-page document which includes a video. So
Okay. Loom?
Hey?
Loom? Or do you use Loom, or how do you
No,
film a video?
I film it on my phone.
And then you upload it?
Yeah,
Okay.
I upload it onto Capwing.
Okay.
Capwing splits it back in an MP4 with captions on it.
Yeah.
I upload that onto the document.
Okay.
So the proposal process would take me about an hour to put together.
Okay. So let's say that's, you actually jumping ahead, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the stage.
Okay.
Just put a quick number on it, it's great. And then, so they sign up on that.
Yep.
And then what happens? So we're happy.
Yep.
How do you get the money? How do you book the time?
We get the billing
Yep.
details. So from that stage, it then goes to Amelia, who handles all my invoicing, my bookings, my logistics, and
Yep.
all the process part of it. And she takes care of everything else from there. So we get the billing details. We send an invoice, all depending on the kind of project it is. It's either full amount is upfront or 50-50.
Yep. Okay.
Once we get paid, we start.
Awesome. Nice. Thanks for doing that. Makes a lot easier when we can sort of see it all in front of us.
Yep.
So you reckon the proposal, so you do the proposal? Because obviously it's reactive and responsive to the conversation you've had.
I do it for now, yes.
Yeah.
That's going to change in the new year.
Okay. And this process, face-to-face phone call, Zoom, another hour? Half an hour to an hour?
Yeah, call it.
So an hour. And then if we just keep working ourselves back,
Yep.
the responding in the channel, so responding on the email before you get to here, or responding in the DMs before you sort of get to here.
Yeah.
What is that? Is it pretty quick?
It's pretty quick.
Okay, let's say
That's,
15 minutes.
yeah.
Pretty marginal. Speaker tips, we'll just say newsletter.
Yeah, we've got a backlog of content, which
Nice.
the next 8 months of content, 6 months of content is already planned out.
Sweet. Nice one. That's really good. But then weekly, what's involved in sending that out?
I don't do that. That's taken care of.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right. And then this stage here, where you're writing content on LinkedIn, you're putting out videos. How much a week is this sort of taking you?
I actually put a bit of time into that because I see content as being, it's a business development strategy.
Yeah.
And my content generally does pretty well. So if I'm on stage, so you're speaking now, there's a video that's being done, that's content. So I get the content trimmed and curated for me.
Okay, great.
It's done with captions, so putting a story behind that content, plus you write it, call it an hour to put content together.
Okay. That's great. I think you're right. That's a worthwhile investment. It isn't necessarily a good thing to automate. You know, it makes sense to put the time into that.
I from a storytelling perspective, I feel if I can put my own thought process into it, it's more authentic for the audience who watches it.
Right. Nice. Okay. You've got a pretty good strategy in terms of the marketing efforts you're doing, and I think what we can sort of have a play with is there's some little moments in here that there might be some tightening up, and that's sort of that leakage that we can sort of bring back. What I just want to quickly jump back to Bamboozle. Now I don't know whether this is positive or a negative, but we basically made one of their staff redundant in the work this sort of did. So they had been laid up. The tasks she was doing redundant. She's doing better, more valuable work there now, which is great. But Amelia, I wonder whether we could have Amelia doing more content stuff with you, or doing, you know. So that's where I sort of start to think about how you can sort of make the most of that staff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just thought that'd be good to mention. There's those opportunities there.
This is something which I would like. There is time in this that I would like to tighten and hand over. However, I watch a video or I write a blog. What I would feel is a good way to write a story or curate that, as opposed to putting as much of that trust in Amelia to do it. It's a different. We've tried it, and I've had to go back in to correct the content or to rewrite things, which takes more time. So I'm so familiar with the process, and I quite enjoy it.
And as we said, I think it's good use of your time. So let's work from the start. We're pretty happy with this sort of stuff at the moment. You're going and you're not doing your own captions, you're not doing all that sort of stuff. You're getting that done, which is great. You've got backlog and that's being sent out. So these we're pretty happy with. Now let's have a look at that sort of that first contact piece. So that's being sort of generated in different channels that are tied to the sort of acquisition and activation. Have you sort of considered that use of Calendly? How much time have you sort of spent, do you reckon, in optimizing that, in actually digging into that Calendly and looking at what else you can be asking?
Not as much time as I know I could.
Yeah. And do you feel like when you get on these calls that you know enough about that person? Or is that pretty much what you're doing here, you're working out?
Yeah, that's the tricky part. When they book me for a call, I don't want to inundate them with too many questions. I don't want it to feel as though...
It's not an interview.
There's too much here. So the rule of three, there's 3 questions which I feel are simple questions.
Okay.
So by the time we get to the call, I have some idea, plus I've got 3 new appointments tomorrow. I've done my research on their board, their minutes, their reports, the work they do, the clients they have. So I'm going in armed with as much information as I can find out. And I then will use the face-to-face time tomorrow to ask a lot of questions.
Okay. How do you do that pre-qualification? So they've made the contact. Where do they go? They just drop into your email inbox in your calendar?
Yeah.
Okay.
They book me through Calendly. Where do they go? Drops straight into my email inbox and it comes up as a meeting invite.
Okay, great. And then would you want them to be on the newsletter? Do they
Yes.
add to the newsletter?
Yeah, we don't have that system yet, where they go onto the newsletter straight away.
Okay, so that could be an interesting opportunity.
Yeah.
And maybe what they're doing is they're dropping in a segment. So they're dropping in, and we're basically saying these are sort of new contacts.
Are we allowed to do that though? Because don't we need to get permission to put somebody onto an email
Yeah,
database?
absolutely, and that's why sort of in that Calendly you
Yeah.
can seek that permission.
Yeah, okay.
And that right there could be sort of maybe an opportunity to just have a quick look at that.
Okay.
And you create some specific content maybe
Yeah.
around them to drip out
Yeah.
for the first week.
Yeah.
So they come in and you'd see that in your email inbox. And you
Yes.
say, okay, John Doe has booked in for tomorrow
Yes.
at 1 p.m.
Yeah.
So you do that research with their board and so how you're just doing some Googling, LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Googling on LinkedIn, their website.
Yeah.
I stalk their profiles.
Yeah, yeah. And where does that drop in? Where do you collect that? Where are you writing notes, or is it just sitting in your head?
That goes onto my old school iPad, so when I step into the meeting, I have it in front of me.
Great. And is that notes, or is that Google Docs, or is that Word?
Notability.
Notability. All right, cool. I'm getting very in depth here.
No, I like it. This is teaching me stuff. I like it.
So Notability. So you're taking the notes in there.
Yeah.
And then when you kick off with them, 2 weeks later, you're then going back to that Notability.
Yeah.
And
I refer back to notability, depending on the length of time we have. So, for example, I've got some clients where I'm on a retainer for 12 months.
Yep.
I'll consistently go back to have a look at what steps are we taking and how does that align to the notes we wrote from day one.
Great. Okay, makes sense. So they're on the call. You're maybe adding some more notes to Notability on that call.
Yep.
And then there might be a bit of email back and forward after that call.
Mm-hmm.
You understand whether or not they need that proposal, whether you can sort of kick off. And then how are you getting stuff to Amelia to sort of say, look, we need an invoice, we need this sort of stuff to be sent out after a proposal?
I forward it on to her
Okay.
and she knows what to do from there.
Yeah.
So she's been through the process enough times now
Yeah.
to know that once she gets the email from me, copied onto the client to Amelia,
Yeah.
she knows what questions to ask for the billing information and
Yeah.
the next steps for her to sort it out.
Great.
We've automated everything through QuickBooks
Okay.
as
Nice.
well, so it's all stored in there. She simply has to go in there, add the new customer in.
Yep.
It populates the invoice and it sends everything else together with the reminders and updates
Right.
and anything else we need to do.
What happens if you get on a call with someone,
Mhm.
and this would be interesting to hear your thoughts on as well.
Yeah.
And how you do it in your businesses. When someone jumps on a call with you and you think they're a great fit, they seem really happy, and my gut would say this probably doesn't happen a lot because I think you do a good job, sure. But what happens if they then get sent a proposal or they get sent an invoice and you just don't hear from them? You just
don't hear from them.
Just don't hear them.
Yeah, so we have the rule of 3, we follow up on 3 occasions and we space them out.
Yep.
And if we don't hear, then we send a thanks but no thanks email.
Okay.
We haven't heard from you, so we're assuming it's not going ahead.
Yep.
There's been instances where I've started my work and one comes to mind 2 sessions in, there was a lot of things that were coming up which we didn't have a discussion about.
Yep.
It turned into quite an uncomfortable conversation. Now, I know for sure what I documented, and I know for sure what I'm supposed to deliver.
Yep.
If it goes towards a conversation where that's not what we spoke about,
Yep.
and it gets too heated, I've got no problems in saying, let's just cut it off here, thanks
Yeah.
but no thanks, because
Yeah.
I don't want to work with someone like that.
These 3 messages.
Yeah.
Who does that? Is
Yes.
that yes. Okay. And are they always getting sent? Like, where is she doing this in a spreadsheet? Is she just like emails? How is that sort of being
It
tracked?
gets sent, she does everything at the moment on the old school Excel, so
Cool.
we need to tighten up on that.
Okay. Okay. So I want to hear with what's your business name? Sorry.
Tannhauser.
Tannhauser. All right. So with Tannhauser, with the clients that you have sort of coming through, how are you tracking with them whether or not, you know, when you sort of made the contact, made a proposal, how are you sort of keeping them engaged, if anything, if they're not like super hot and jumping straight into it?
Yeah, so we are using PodDrive, so we're tracking that, and we're a team of 4,
Yep.
so depending on who the initial contact was, and then us doing the follow-up.
Yep.
But we get the reminders, so we've got that set so that we don't drop anyone.
Yep.
And we're talking about, I suppose, fewer proposals,
Yep.
and it's easy for us, you know, we're starting out still, so
Yep.
it's easy to track. But yeah, we've got some automation, I guess,
Right.
around it to make sure we don't drop anyone.
Yeah. Because I think there might be a couple of options here, and what I want to do, just as we wrap up, is have a very quick look at that, and then have a look at this,
Yep.
and potentially also that.
Yeah.
Because what I think you'll find is that when, are you wanting more clients? Or are you happy with the stream you got at the moment, or do you want less, or?
I don't want, I want the right clients. So I'm very, I have less clients than I did a year ago.
Yep.
However, my fees are much higher.
Yeah.
And I would much rather that. So have a smaller base of clients who understand the value of work that I do, who refer me to their network,
Yep.
where there is no negotiation about the fees I have.
Yeah.
That's the value I have. So my client base has gone down, so I like more quality clients than quantity clients.
Perfect. So it's all about the qualification.
Yep.
It's all about making sure they are that right type of client.
Yep.
All the way back up at this point as well,
Yep.
making sure you're putting out the right messaging,
Yep.
which I know you're doing. How does Amelia see what's in Notability?
She doesn't.
The reason I say that is because when Amelia is sending that second email, is she using names? Hey Bob?
Yeah,
Okay.
she's using names.
Perfect. There might even be the opportunity to bring more into that.
Sure.
Because I think the sort of the general sense of this is that this is where the sales happens, and this is just sort of kicking the can down the road, the sort of going through the processes.
Yeah.
This is where sales happens as well.
Yeah.
So the messaging that you can take from the notes you've had, the conversations you've had, that is the perfect thing to be introducing into here. And without that connection, it's hard to see as well. And with Tannhauser, you might actually, in that pipe drive setup, be able to see, are they opening these emails?
Sure.
Is it actually time to get on a phone call?
Yeah.
Because they're actually just not getting these emails at all.
Yeah.
So that actually might be the opportunity there to, all the way from up here, pulling in the right attributes, you know, and getting them sort of answering questions here, so that in the call, it doesn't feel like an interview. And then when you're actually qualifying and making notes on those meetings, on those profiles, when it gets to the point of proposal, you just move it into the next stage. QuickBooks does the invoicing for you, and you're able to, you know, follow up if necessary with tasks for the right team member using the right messages.
Yep.
That might be
it would be.
the approach.
Yeah.
So what I want to do very quickly, let's do this chair, is take 5-10 minutes to have a look at what that might look like, to actually explore the possibilities there. This is going to be really testing me. So I want to have a look at that Calendly and newsletter integration, something that you end up doing with like a pipe drive or a HubSpot, whatever it is, where you're able to have them pull through mirror displays. Perfect. All right. Who's been inside of Zapier before? Yep. Cool. So I'm just going to quickly jump in. Now Zapier, I know I mentioned Zapier and Integromat. Zapier is the easier of the glue. It's less likely to sort of get your hands sticky. It's pretty user friendly, and they've got a lot of integration. So there's a few recommended workflows here. I just want to have a very quick look. So let's say someone sends you an email to your Gmail account.
Yeah.
The attachment in that email gets put into a Google Drive folder,
Yeah.
like that. For some businesses, that would save them a lot of time each week. You put a filter in there, you say, is it from external emails only? Then put it into this particular Google Drive.
Yeah.
Very helpful. Create new Google Sheets rows from your Google Calendar event.
Don't mean to be rude, guys. Someone's been trying to call me.
No worries.
Just check.
We've got this map up here, and that's why that's step one, because we're not trying to create this in our heads. We're going to the board, we're saying, okay, so they're booked in a Calendly, let's go up here, connect this at Calendly. There it is. And we're going to connect it in, where are you seeing the newsletters from?
Mailchimp.
Mailchimp, that's right. Mailchimp. Perfect. So, when an invitee is created, we want to add or update subscriber. Let's try that. Now you can see that in that map, there may well be 5 or 10 different opportunities to do something like this. Now, I'm going to quickly sign into Calendly, just so we can see this. Now, the benefit of what we've got here is when you're signing into these different accounts, you're constantly, it's basically doing the pinging for you.
Yeah.
So traditionally with that enterprise software, the APIs are always making requests with each other. You're having to set all that up, making sure it's always working.
Yeah.
With these guys, it's pretty much just plug and play, which is pretty awesome. So you go and grab that key, put that in, and then it's going to go back. It's going to say perfect. There's our ammo account, and we want to sign into Mailchimp. Mailchimp is renowned for being one of the most tightly secured pieces of software. We were having fun this earlier in the week. We were trying to change one login.
I was trying to send a newsletter and I was trying to add another account that day and it just didn't like it. I'm like, man, the newsletters go out, you gotta go out. What are you doing?
Alright, so we're in and we're just going to confirm this.
So this, as you said, is the glue which holds it all together.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you're just pulling those in from here. And then you can see that, we've got in here our Jack's LinkedIn contacts, and my clients and partners. We're just going to pull this one in. Now, obviously that's a simple one, and that's going to start doing straight away. That's all you need to do for you to have those calendar contacts being pulled into Mailchimp. Now you can get a little bit more granular. You can go and choose that particular account. You can test the trigger, and you can go in here and you can actually go and set it up. So set up action, and you can use what's called variables. So you can go in here and you can actually go and fill in from their sort of name and details. So let's say you've got, and it might not be Mailchimp, it might be Pipedrive, and you guys might have something similar to this, where when they book in a Calendly, they might answer some questions. Ours is set up so that there's a type form. So they fill out the type form. We are asking things like, what's your budget? What's your website? How comfortable are you with your current marketing campaigns? That is being pulled in as fields into our CRM. And that's what you're doing here with those different merge tags. And then what you can do is you can set it up so it sends out an email straight away and it says, hey Kai, I'm really excited to see that you and Tannhauser are interested in working with Chatterbox, public speaking. We know that you are Perth-based because we've plugged in with Clearbit and we've worked out we know what city you're in without you even having to tell us. So maybe a face-to-face meeting would be best. Here's a specific calendar link. You can choose your favourite coffee shop in Perth. Let's book it over the next couple of weeks. Compare that to hi, please book at a time.
Yeah. So
that's the advantage of just within a couple of clicks and mapping it out. You can start to see these opportunities. And very quickly, just because I love showing it off, and I can't really show it off in many other contexts. Two things. First of all, that bookmarks bar. So those are some of the tools that I'm using on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
A lot of them I've sort of mentioned today. And that's the sort of thing, like with a lot of the marketing automation stuff, you sort of have to just be aware of all these different tools, because sometimes you need to plug in and find the right one for that job. So we released a tool recently called Myfunnel out of Ammo. So it's a tool that pretty much lets you generate a marketing funnel specifically for your startup. And it pumps out something like this that shows you basically what we've mapped out, but our suggestions for the channels, tactics, and sort of strategies for each of those stages for your particular type of business. So the way this works, and this is relevant hugely because it starts as a type form. We pull in data, and this is Integromat. This is why you can sort of break the glue more, because it looks way crazier. It's watching for those responses. It's doing some calculations. It then goes and creates, using a template in Google Slides, a visual funnel. It then makes a decision whether or not we can add their logo. We pull it in from Clearbit. So I can actually go in here, logo.clearbit.com. Shil, what's your domain?
chatboxps.com.au.
chatterboxps.com.au.
Yeah.
You're not popular enough. No, I'm joking. It goes in aggregate. So let's put spacecubed.com.au.
Just
.com. Alright. There you go. Alright. So there's a logo. And we can put that at the bottom of the funnel that these people get without us having to do anything. I don't know if you ever had to Google logos before, and it's just such a pain. So anyway, we're using all these different tools. It gets very complicated. It sends emails. It adds them into a database. I did it just as a test to see how long this would take me in person. It took about 45 minutes. We've done 600 runs of this so far, which I'm not going to do the calc, that's a lot of time. So when you're actually building complete applications as well, you can use these tools to get the job done. And even if you're just adding someone from Calendly to your Mailchimp, it's effective. It saves you time more than anything. It improves the customer experience. So that's my little run through. Hopefully there's been some little bits. I mean, hopefully Shil, that's helped you out a little bit. We can continue that conversation.
Yeah.
But for the rest of you that have sort of gone, okay, how can I take this back into the business that I'm running? It's not Shil's, it's my own. Number one, make sure you spend the time with your customers. You have to do these things manually first, because otherwise you don't understand your process. In fact, quite often you wouldn't have the process. So if you can actually go and do those things with those customers, do those things that don't scale, then you can sort of get to that point where you're choosing the right marketing automation tools for you, set up a bit of a criteria, use those platforms that compare and contrast, talk to your peers, what else are they using, and then continue to check in with your automation. It doesn't sort of set and forget. When I'm jumping back into this every couple of days and tweaking something, or we're changing a bit of wording, it's iterating because your business is too. So that's the key, it should evolve with you. And hopefully you can save yourself a bit of time, and most importantly, improve that customer experience. Thanks for coming. Thanks for having the chat.